Yeah, you guys ever look at like maybe post online or interviews, and whether it's by celebrity athletes, actors, just someone that's kind of up there, it just really kind of makes you like scratch your head or kind of question what in the world are you saying. That happened to me, this last weekend coming into today, and I feel like everyone, for the most part, has seen it. And if you haven't seen it, we're going to talk about the tweet that Rashard Mendenhall put out. And it's absurdity. I mean, that's one word I could kind of put to it is absurdity. But first things first, I hope everybody had a great weekend. I know I did. It was very eventful. I mean, it's Christmas time. It seems like every weekend now is just packed, whether it's family events, wrapping gifts, shopping still, because, we're guys. We always wait to the last minute for shopping. I mean, it seems to be kind of a trend with us. But yeah, I hope everybody had a great weekend. And I just want to welcome you here to Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. I am your host, Matthew Raridan. And beside me are my co hosts. First thing, we have David Street.
What's up, y'all? I messed up the finger hold, but whatever.
And we have Ed Smith.
Hi, y'all.
No hook'em? No hook'em today? Come on, Ed.
Yeah, he should be in a great mood. Like he stole, I mean, flipped a recruit from us. So you should be in a great mood, Ed.
Yeah, Ed's been rubbing it in David's face. It seems like all day now, but we'll
Yeah,
get.
well, we knew it was coming for a while, but
Yeah, yeah. But one thing we didn't know was coming was this just very dumb tweet by Rashard Mendenhall. I mean, I guys, it really kind of shocked me because I'm like, all right, is this like an early April Fool's joke? I mean, there's no way this guy can be serious about what he just tweeted. And well, it turns out he is. And I just want to read this to you guys. This is word for word. This is an exact quote of the tweet. This is Rashard Mendenhall here, guys. This is what it says. I sick of average white guys commenting on football. Y'all not even good at football. Can we please replace the Pro Bowl with an all black versus all white bowl so these cats can stop trying to teach me who's good at football? I'm better than your goat. I mean, an end quote there first. I'm better than your goat. Okay. And this is the last thing we need. And when I say we need, I'm talking about, I'll just say this country. Right now, this country is as divided as I've ever seen. Yes, every single day we are being divided more and more. And a lot of it has to do with politics. And the one thing that we have within sports is without politics. I mean, there's politics and everything, I will say that. But sports seems to be a great escape for a lot of people to leave politics out of it, to leave race out of it, to leave a lot of things out of it. And well, here's Rashard Mendenhall bringing it right into it, where he brings race into this and talks about how white people are just not good and that he is better than your goat. And this is a tweet that he had put out that I just read, but my favorite comment of them all was of course from a Steelers fan, and I myself am a Steelers fan. So he said everything that I was thinking, and this was his comment. My favorite he said my favorite, or my apologies. I'm sick of average running backs fumbling the ball away in the most important game they'll ever play. But I guess we both won't get what we want, Rashard.
I saw that. That was
It's
so
literally
good.
like the top comment on there, and there's a reason. I mean, he's taking his words by saying, I'm sick of average, but then switches it to running backs, and it's true. I'm a Steelers fan. We had started gaining momentum against the Green Bay Packers in the Super Bowl. What does Rashard Mendenhall do? He fumbles the ball. But who caused that fumble? One of those average white guys he's talking about, Clay Matthews. I mean, wow. I mean, who would have saw that coming? Apparently he didn't, and clearly he didn't. And so it just kind of just blows my mind that here he is bringing in race in this, an all black versus all white bowl. And a lot of people online, you saw different comments. I mean, heck, I saw JJ Watt. He said, well, I'll tell you right now, we'd lose because there's no white guy out there that's going to cover Tyreek Hill. Well, guess what? there's not really any black guys that can cover him too. He's just that good. But that's the thing, is that I don't look at sports as black and white. This isn't a race thing. I look at it as, if you're great, no matter the color of your skin. There's no need to bring this in. Of course, many people consider Tom Brady as the GOAT. Guess what? He is the GOAT. But am I saying that because of his skin color? No. I'm talking about his accomplishments. That's how I base things off of who's the GOAT. That's how I base things off of who is a tremendous player versus a mediocre player. I do not base it on skin color, unlike Rashard Mendenhall does. So I'm dying to hear your guys' reactions. So I'm going to go ahead and start with you first, Ed.
Well, I mean, this is absolutely somebody who is completely irrelevant, trying to bring themselves to prominence by just throwing out garbage online, and the people that can't stand not looking at a train wreck will just jump on this train and just crash the whole thing. It has been something that has completely surrounded my timeline. I don't know about you guys, but my timeline and a lot of people I know's timeline, because it is such a goodness awful take that everybody's got to comment on it, whether they be on his side, which I don't understand how anybody could be, or be on the side of, well, look at your accomplishments. You're not the GOAT. You may say that you're great, but your hands certainly weren't when you fumbled the ball in the Super Bowl. There's that. And then there's uh, those that are saying, well, if we take a look at some of these, if you want to go by your logic, let's take a look at the all white team, and then let's see how you handle Christian McCaffrey versus you. I would take Christian McCaffrey every day in the week, and twice on Sunday and 3 times on Sunday night.
Yeah. I mean, it is true. I mean, if you stack them up, who you picking? I mean, shoot, you stack anyone up against Christian McCaffrey right now. A healthy Christian McCaffrey, let's just talk fantasy football. He's going first overall, and there's a reason. Why? Because he's good, not because the color of his skin. But David, I mean, I would imagine you reacted the same as us. But yeah, tell me how you're feeling about it.
Uh, I've got some stats here that I want to read to you guys. Okay. Um. So, Rashard Mendenhall's career. Okay. Career average of less than 4 yards a carry. Got demoted to third string at one point after he fumbled the ball and he lost to the Cleveland Browns. And by the way, you'll notice a recurring theme here. I don't know about you guys, but personally, I think Rashard Mendenhall should change his name to Santa Claus, because in his short career, he gave footballs away like they were gifts. I mean, we're already talking about the fumble he had in the most important game of the season. But here's something interesting. The guy had 13 career fumbles, and in just 6 seasons, in 72 games played, that's more fumbles than Christian McCaffrey has had, 8 fumbles in 89 games. Nick Chubb has had 6 fumbles in 77 games. Alvin Kamara, 7 fumbles in 99 games. And Joe Mixon, 3 fumbles in 94 games. All these guys that I have mentioned have played in more games than Mendenhall did in his career. And yet all those guys have less career fumbles so far, right? So like if we can't comment because like we're average, well then like what does that say about you when you just had a mediocre career at best? And like, why even take the aim at white people? If he had just simply said, I'm sick of average people commenting on football, well, that would still be stupid, but at least there's no agenda, right? But I agree with Ed completely. This is just a guy, lost in irrelevancy, trying to get his 15 minutes of fame back. But thank God his his trash ass tweet got ratioed. And I'll conclude with this: the fact that this clown actually flexed with a conference championship trophy, and I believe he wrote the caption, champion or something like that. Yeah, buddy, maybe you could actually have the more important trophy if you didn't give the ball away. So, yeah.
It, it, it
And my favorite part of this is the fact that, just a few hours afterward, he tried to backpedal with a following tweet. Did y'all see this one?
no, I did not.
Simply tired of being berated by people who aren't experts in the game. We just pretend like I'm the only athlete tired of fans talking trash. You upset over a single tweet. What about us? Like me or not, I'm a great in football. This proves my point. You can't speak on ball alone.
Oh,
What?
what a joke! What a clown this asshole is, man. And you know what I noticed, Ed? He didn't mention race in there. That would still be a stupid tweet, but at least he doesn't mention race there. If he had just said that, there wouldn't be nearly as much pushback.
And your point is well taken, David. The fact that he had to throw that extra piece in it, that's what made it relevant to people to come at him, which made him trend for the entire day, through this Monday. Which, let's be honest, it wasn't a huge weekend, but we're going to cover what was out there.
Yeah, exactly. And Matthew, I'll be honest with you, bro. I totally forgot Rashard Mendenhall even existed until today.
As
100%.
Yeah.
Steeler fans, we pretty much did too. I mean, shoot, him flexing with that conference championship is just as worse as the Lakers celebrating with the banner of the in-season tournament. I mean, it's not even a real championship. It's more like a here's a ribbon for showing up. But as Ed said, we did have some action this weekend, and last night we had action with a potential playoff matchup here, and that was Baltimore Ravens against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And guys, a part of me expected this to be a little bit closer, and it was. The score ended up being 23-7. The Ravens did win, but it just is just really apparent to me that the Ravens are just good, and I don't even think they are at their best yet. This is my true opinion, and this is coming from a Steelers fan. The Ravens to me are one of the most complete teams in the NFL, obviously behind the Niners, but the Ravens just can attack you at many different angles. And Lamar Jackson, he showed it off last night, especially on his feet, 97 rush yards. He's lethal. We saw this in college with Jaden Daniels. And, we saw it in college with Lamar Jackson when he won the Heisman for Louisville. But we're seeing it now transpire in the NFL. And, guys, a healthy Lamar Jackson is kind of a scary quarterback. I mean, what he is doing as a leader for the Ravens this year, and I'm going to talk more in depth about this here in a second, but what he's doing with the injuries they've had and sustained at running back and tight end, we saw with Mark Andrews, he's still winning games. The Ravens have now won 4 straight, whereas Jacksonville, they're now have lost 3 straight. Jacksonville, who was once actually up there at the top of the AFC just a couple weeks ago with the Ravens, are now in a 3-way tie in their division for first. So it is a 3-way tie between them, the Texans, and the Colts. The Colts came out of nowhere. That's a topic for another discussion. But the Jaguars have really choked, unfortunately, towards the end of this year. Granted, they are still in a position to win that division and make the playoffs, but they've kind of just fumbled the bag a little bit, in my opinion. But the Ravens, on the other hand, are in a different direction. They are, winning these games. They are looking good going into the playoffs here in a couple weeks. And I mean, I like their chances right now in the AFC. They are playing great football. Teams like the Chiefs are not. So the teams that are normally winning aren't really doing the best, whereas the Ravens are. But this is kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit more in depth. And this is, in my opinion, the most cursed position in all of football, and that is running back for the Baltimore Ravens. Last night, Keaton Mitchell, their running back, a very, very gruesome injury, tore his ACL and is out for the year, and chances are out for longer. I mean, the rest of the year is only a couple weeks, but with that type of injury, who knows how he'll come back. And not everyone could be like Adrian Peterson, and when he'll come back, because this being later in the year, you're usually looking at a full year recovery. And well, who else is also in recovery that plays for the Ravens at running back? Oh, that's J.K. Dobbins. That's 2 years in a row for him. This, yeah, I mean, I know it's just kind of hypothetical, but this is seriously a cursed position, in my opinion, for the Baltimore Ravens. They can't sustain healthy running backs. They have season-ending injuries left and right, but yet they're still winning this year. So I want to give Harbaugh, John Harbaugh, Lamar Jackson, and is it Todd Monken they have there, or is he?
Todd
Yeah,
Monken, yeah, he's
and
really
what they are doing to revitalize this offense, because that defense is going to do what it's going to do. Because with Roquan Smith there and Marlon Humphrey, you already have a legit defense with those two players. But the offense, what they are doing with all these injuries is, in my opinion, is amazing. So at the end of the day, Baltimore did beat the Jaguars 23-7, and I think the Ravens are in a good position to win the AFC. That's how I'm feeling right now. But then again, playoffs come around. The Chiefs, they are a different team. But when December comes around, there's one team out there that really likes to win their games, and they have a high success at that, and that is the Buffalo Bills. And David, what did the Buffalo Bills do yesterday?
Oh, they who they play was it was the Cowboys that played, right?
The Cowgirls, yep.
Yes, thank you. I don't know why I just had a major brain fart. But yes, the Bills trounced the Cowboys, and the Cowboys, they're an interesting team because they're undefeated at home, but they have a losing record on the road, and just there are some teams out there who can feed off the energy of their fans, but when they're away from those fans, they really don't know what to do. And what did I rant about before? That the Cowboys just don't win against teams with winning records, with the exception of the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, that was a great win, but still, the Eagles remain the only team with a winning record that the Cowboys have beaten. And listen, I said before that I don't think the Cowboys are ever going to win a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott, and I still believe that. Now, would I be surprised if the Cowboys won the Super Bowl with Dak Prescott? No, I would not be surprised, but it's just one of those things where I won't believe it until I see it. Like you have to show me. And honestly, to tell you the truth, I'm kind of approaching the same way with the Buffalo Bills, man. I think for like the last 2 or 3 years, I picked them to go to the Super Bowl, and they've let me down each time, or maybe not the last 2 or 3 times, but the point is, I have picked the Bills to go to the Super Bowl before, and I don't know what it is, but like they just don't seem to perform up to expectations in the playoffs. It's like they're almost becoming the Dallas Cowboys of the AFC, But I also feel like this is another um common theme we see from the Bills, where they get to the midway point where they're just average at best, or at least their record is average. Okay, because what did I say before? They're the most dominant average team of all time. They get to a point where they're like 6-6, 7-6, or whatever, and they just string a bunch of wins to end the season. And right now it looks like that's what we're seeing so far. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out. But Ed, as the Texas resident who is definitely not a Cowboys fan, you got maybe any quick thoughts on the game?
Well, I think San Francisco really laid out the game plan on how to beat the Cowboys away from Cowboys Stadium. Beat their ass up front. They hammered the Cowboys 43 rushes. How many times have you seen a team run 43 times and completely dominate a team that's 10-4? Not very often. Why? Because that 10-4 team is soft. They are very soft, because 2 of those losses now between the Niners and the Bills are games where they got beat up front by a running team that was hell bent on smash mouth football against them. And there was no hiding for anybody on that defense, on that offense, nowhere on that field. It's amazing they how the Cowboys, when they leave Texas, they forget how to play football the way that they did when they're in their home facility. When they're all nice and cozy in their comfy little bed in Arlington,
Jerry's
Texas.
world.
Exactly. You know, they just completely lose it. And I don't understand why. But, David, you said that you don't think the Cowboys will win a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott at quarterback. I'll do you one better. I don't think they win another Super Bowl with Jerry Jones as the owner.
I agree.
Period.
For sure.
There's no way. I they will have great regular season success. That brings in a lot of dollars. Jerry is a businessman. He wants the business. But he does want to prove that he can build a Super Bowl winning team, to really still spite Jimmy Johnson. And it's never going to happen. We've got, I know some personalities in the local area that are saying that they're willing to walk from Austin to Cowboy Stadium if the Cowboys win the Super Bowl. He made that bet over 20 years ago. Not even close to
Yeah.
taking that walk. That's
Hey,
amazing on that part.
and you know what's also interesting, Ed? Like you talked about them getting destroyed by the Bills and the 49ers. Well, let's also not forget that they also got smashed by the Cardinals, and the Cardinals are one of the worst teams in the NFL.
And what did they do in that game? They ran it straight at them. They did not hide. They did not try and play the perimeter. They played directly between the hashes. You do that against the Cowboys, and eventually, it's like Novocaine. It always works.
Yeah, Jerry Jones is like the Jackie Moon of NFL, where he's the owner, the GM, he just does everything, but he's got his hand too much involved. And that's why I feel like they have so many issues. But yeah, as well as long as he's an owner, I just feel like they're doomed. And we had talked about, a couple weeks ago, Bill Belichick stepping down from the GM position possibly could make
Mhm.
difference. Well, Jerry Jones just needs to step down from everything.
So speaking of, go
I
ahead,
was
Ed.
just
Go ahead.
did Jerry Jones trade Michael Gallup for a washing machine?
Well, that was a dryer. Yeah. It was a
So
General Electric.
Yeah. David, you were saying? I'm sorry.
no, you're good. You're good. Speaking of Belichick, there are rumors. I'm calling them rumors for now because I have no idea if they're true or not. But apparently, oh my gosh, what's the Kraft? I'm losing it tonight,
Robert
guys.
Kraft, yeah.
Robert Kraft is apparently going to move on from Bill Belichick. Do we believe that or not?
I believe it because it's going to take a long time before Bill could even get close to getting to Don Shula's record, and that's the only reason for him to stay in Boston.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I see it being his last year. I just don't think that he can really gather a team to make them win next year just like that. It's going to take some time. So I think that he'll be out of there.
Yeah, I think just my one comment would be I think I understand the NFL is a business at the end of the day, but in my opinion, I think Bill earned the right to step down instead of just
Yeah.
being fired. But again, we don't know what's going to happen, but I think he's earned the right to step down after all he's accomplished with them.
I agree, and you're absolutely right. Anything can happen, and it's kind of what I want to hone on here. When we saw Joe Burrow go down for the rest of the year, I think all NFL fans, probably even Bengal fans, actually I know for a fact because I live in Cincinnati, uh, the Bengals were done. They were not going to probably win anymore. Maybe one game possibly. They got lucky. They would not be making the playoffs. Well, anything could happen, guys. And the Bengals right now are in a great position to make the playoffs. And Ed's going to talk about this really exciting game that happened actually on Saturday.
Well, it was an exciting fourth quarter, that's for sure. Yeah. The first three quarters, you could wind up eating like old stale popcorn and not even notice. But as it got into the fourth quarter, we had 28 points scored in the fourth quarter, 21 of them by the Cincinnati Bengals. That there was a lot going on there. Uh, so in that game played on Saturday, Minnesota went to Cincinnati and had gotten up on Cincinnati 17-3 when the fourth quarter started. The game ended with Cincinnati winning 27-24 in overtime. That was quite the miraculous comeback. And as I went back and watched that game, I watched Browning and how he threw the ball. And I got to say, and this is on both sides, this was a wide receivers game. This wasn't the quarterback game. This wasn't a running back game. This wasn't a defensive game. This was the wide receivers doing the job. And they elevated the two quarterbacks that were playing, Browning for the Bengals and Nick Mullins for the Vikings. So Browning wound up 29 of 42 with 324 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Jamar Chase, 4 catches, 64 yards. T. Higgins, 4 catches, 61 yards. Tyler Boyd, 2 for 53. Tanner Hudson, 5 for 49. And that is 4 pass catchers, basically 10 yards a catch or more. Browning did a great job spreading the ball out, so Minnesota couldn't hone in on one single player because they really didn't run the ball. I mean, Joe Mixon had 47 yards on 10 carries. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot going on there. This was squarely on Browning's shoulders. And if you look at the ball placement where a lot of those throws were, they were high and they were to the outside, and the wide receivers had to make hands catches for them to, gain any yards. And of course, when you have young quarterbacks like that, you're going to see some questionable throws. And oh boy, did we. Between the two quarterbacks, I probably counted at least 6 throws that was like, what in the world are you doing? And possibly the dumbest and shortest interception I've ever seen from Nick Mullins, where he basically handed it to the defensive tackle, because he was falling down. He tried to throw it, to call it incomplete. He wound up landing on the defensive tackle, and
that was so bad.
oh, it was terrible. But when you go back and look at what else Nick Mullins did, he actually did a really good job getting to his playmakers. He didn't spread the ball quite as well because he had Jordan Addison that was just running roughshod, 6 catches for 111 yards. Justin Jefferson back on the field, 7 catches for 84 yards, and they actually ran the ball, for over 100 yards. So there was some good balance in the Vikings offense, and Mullins was just, distributing to the playmakers, whereas Browning was more, letting the wide receivers do the job. So in the end, it wound up being Cincinnati winning the game, and I got to give props to the wide receiver core. They did the job, and that's what's going to keep them in the playoff picture. Because right now, the Bengals are the 6th seed at 8-6, third in the AFC North, which we've talked about on this show before. The AFC North is the strongest division by far in the NFL right now, with all the teams at 500 or greater, which has only happened one time by the end of the season, and that was in 1936. That was a very long time ago, and it was a completely different game at that time in the NFL. But I mean, what were some other things that Matthew, you kind of just have an overreaction about when it came to this weekend?
Well, really quick on this Bengals game, when Burrow got hurt and you put in a backup quarterback, usually the the play calling is different. It's usually run heavy because it's a backup quarterback. They haven't skipped a beat. They are still a pass heavy, a pass first team, and they're doing incredible at it. I mean, T. Higgins is in a contract year, and that touchdown, I just want to talk about that touchdown catch he had. When you said that this was a wide receiver game, that was the example right there. When you saw the effort, the extra effort he made to make that touchdown was incredible. It was one of the best plays I've actually seen in a long time. A lot of players just give up on the play. The defender's holding them back. Their momentum's taking them out. No, he defied the odds and he dove for it. But there was some other stuff that happened this weekend that I really want to talk about. And we have talked about on this show before, actually the last several episodes of like the transfer portal and college football and it being such a business kind of operation, which it is, but there's just been so much happening. And Chip Kelly over the weekend had some comments on things that are happening right now with the conference realignment and just that college football in general. And I want to read this for you guys and get your reactions on it. So these are in Chip's kind of what Kelly's comments were. I'm going to start with this first quote, and it is, "I think we should all be independent in football. You can have a 64-team conference that's in the Power 5, and you can have a 64-team conference in the Group of 5, and we separate it and we play each other." And that's the end of the quote there. So that's kind of in gist of what he said. He has said more, and we're going to cover that as well. But David, what are your thoughts kind of on that generalization of that quote?
I mean, I think it's certainly an interesting concept, and it would certainly seem to maybe help out teams like FSU who got left behind because they play in a weak conference. And I'll be honest, I feel like anything at this point will be better than what the NCAA is doing right now. And I think the most important thing, or at least one of the most important things about what Chip Kelly is proposing with this idea of an independent making football independent, is that you kind of go back to regional ties here, right? Whereas like teams in the West Coast can play teams in the West Coast, or teams in the Midwest can play teams in the Midwest. But I'll be honest with you. Of course, we know about conference realignment. But am I correct? And you can correct me if I'm wrong here. But am I correct when I say that only the football teams are going to switch conferences? That, like, for example, UCLA football is switching football, but their basketball team is still staying in
It's
the
the whole
Pac-12.
thing. It's the
What's
whole
that? Ed?
thing.
The
That
whole
it's the
thing.
whole thing.
Okay.
Part of the comments, the further along comments that Chip Kelly talked about, was the fact that UCLA softball should be playing Arizona softball. That's why you make all of the football teams independent, because that's the blueprint that Notre Dame has done. Why can't it work for everybody else? Have it work as a single unit at the 64 team level, and have a commissioner for that level, because I think everybody's would love to see that, because that would take committees out of it. It would take polls out of it. It would just be what's on the field that goes into that. Now, is it so many games and so many teams that we may talk about some polls and who's doing better at what and this, that? Yes, that's absolutely true. But what he's talking about more is football is such a big portion of an athletic department in and of itself that it needs to be treated separately from everything else. Everything else should stay regional. The West Coast team should be playing West Coast teams. Long Beach State should be playing UCLA, as well as St. Mary's and San Diego State. Those things should stay where they are. But if you're talking, college football, especially at the D1 level, there's 138 teams in D1. If you take 64 of them and make a true Power Five and have a commissioner over that section, that allows for a lot of flexibility to make sure that it's done correctly and provide the option for using the TV contracts to create revenue sharing with the players, which, in my opinion, is necessary to curb this NIL function because the NIL portion just makes it all completely out of whack from one to the other. I said $50,000 per player. If you look at 85 scholarship players at $50,000 each, that's 4.25 million. That is drops in the bucket when you're talking about the Big Ten that made $58.8 million per school this past season. And then you've got the SEC at 49.9 million. You don't think that they can afford, paying these players $50,000 as a living wage while they are in school, and then have it be incumbent upon the player to go out and get their own NIL, get rid of these collectives because the collectives are really the school paying the players, but only the players that they want to pay, not revenue share the entirety of what's being brought into college football. Because the players are really the product in this. And if they are not getting their share of the pay that's coming in, then where's that money going? We're not seeing it, in the facilities at every location. We're only seeing it at a few of them because they have the excess along with the boosters that are, bringing money in. You know, are y'all seeing that as well? Because I do have some other ideas to add on to it, but I want to get your initial reaction on that idea.
Yeah, I really think he's onto something, and I think that this was pretty well thought. I
Hold up, Matthew. Remember, Chip Kelly said that he didn't think too much of it.
Well, I mean, come on. I also, people say I'm not guilty that have committed the crime too. So
Yeah.
it's, he could say that, but, and yeah, has he thought it finally through? No, because there's
Mhm.
always going to be question marks on things, especially now. I mean, shoot, the other day I heard several people say, man, why can't we just bring back the BCS? And it's like, because of everything that's happened lately,
Yeah.
it with Florida State and all that, everyone wants something different. But his idea is actually kind of for the better. But it's a catch-22 type of situation, honestly, because when you hear, oh, originally UCLA, USC are heading to the Big Ten, you think of the school. But it's not like they said UCLA football and USC football are heading to the Big Ten, but the rest are staying back. They said the whole school. So it's like you initially think, well, the whole school would go. But now that he has kind of a guideline laid out on what could transpire, to me, it sounds like he's onto something, but that could just be me here, David.
Yeah, and let me just say something real quick too. That when Chip Kelly said that he hadn't thought about it that much, I know everybody was like, yeah, "You sure about that?" But I actually I actually kind of believe Chip Kelly because um, people have to remember that Chip Kelly is a genius when it comes to football. I mentioned in our show with our guest Shelton that some people are just obsessed with football, and Chip Kelly is just one of those people. I mean, you, Matthew, being the resident Oregon fan, I mean, there was a point when Chip Kelly was regarded as the best coach in college football, certainly the most innovative coach in college football. So when he says, I haven't thought about it that much, I think he actually might be speaking the truth because, as I said, the man is a genius when it comes to football, and it just comes naturally to some people.
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
mean, coming naturally is something that, yeah, for people that are just kind of genius on a specific topic, such as he is, it can just come naturally. So I could definitely give him the benefit of the doubt of that. But when you hear it, I guess it's kind of like an average person such as us. It kind of does sound like something that was well thought out, and when in reality, it could just possibly be this just kind of came off the dome like right now.
Oh
So,
yeah. Oh
but
yeah.
yeah.
I could me being an average white guy, I can never come up with that like on the fly.
With so I want to take an analogy for a second, if you'll indulge me, and it's when I started watching soccer or European football, I had no idea what the schedule, the calendar, or any of that stuff meant. I just knew it was games on a field, right? You know, taking an average college football fan and tell them, oh, well, it's a league that you play, but then there's these other tournaments that you play within the season, and then there is a champion, 4 teams that are a champion, and 3 teams at the bottom that get relegated, and then other teams show up from this other league that is a lower level into the upper league, and this, that, and the other. An average college football fan would be like, "What are you talking about? Are you high? What is this?" But you go and takes a English football fan and try to explain to them the calendar of college football, and their mind will explode. It is ridiculous what we have going on, because it's this to that to this. Oh, and we take a month off and have the draft and the free agency in the middle between that and the championship games of said season, and recruiting and all this other stuff. It's all ridiculous. Now, but my idea for it is kind of to take some of what is in the European Football League as far as relegation, and move it to the college football with this 64 and 64 split that Chip Kelly was talking about. Because if you set it up that way and have the bottom 2 teams of 4 divisions go down to a corresponding group of 5 conference, which that would need some realignment at this point, have the champions of the group of 5 conference move up into the power 4, then that, I think, would keep a balance of power and make the product even greater, for long term. And every game would still matter, no matter if the team is at the bottom of the standings or at the top of the standings. It would all work itself out, and I think that would be the extra step in Chip Kelly's talk. But
Mm.
that's just an idea that I had.
That's interesting, and I think the one good thing about relegation is that it gives teams an incentive to actually try to win, because no team is going to want to go down. They're going to be like, oh crap, like I don't want to go down to the lower division, like I better get my act together.
Right. And if every team is independent, then they don't have to worry about the other schools dropping down as well.
Hmm.
So, you wind up replacing Tulane with Vandy. Have those teams swap, you
Yeah.
know, when you're talking about the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, it's lighting a fire under a team, under a program, and it honestly can change a lot of things. So I really like that idea. But as far as changes, this last weekend was the final UFC card of the year, and for UFC fans out there, the last card of the year is usually pretty stacked. It's one of the more action packed. You want to end the year with a bang, and rightfully so. And the UFC 296, that was exactly pretty much the plan there. And I'm going to go over pretty much just actually the main event, not necessarily the main card, but more so the main event, and that was for the welterweight title, and that was Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington. And for those of you who don't know, Colby Covington is quite the character. He pretty much just says whatever's on his mind, no filter. You call him patriotic. He is a heck of a fighter. He has one of the best cardio in the game. And one thing that he has perfected in fighting, you always want to have an advantage on your opponent. And for the most part, it has always been weight. Who weighs more. Wrestling, you've seen it. If you ever watch the movie The Breakfast Club, you see Emilio Estevez, the wrestler, the jock, pull out his big old paper bag of food that he's eating. He's a wrestler. It's all about gaining that weight, having that edge on your opponent. The same thing applies with the UFC. However, though, with Colby Covington, not quite. He is not the biggest size-wise in welterweight, whereas his walk-around weight is not much more than the weight class he fights at. And that's not really heard of much in the UFC because of wanting to have that weight advantage. But for him, it works because of cardio. The more you cut, the less cardio you have. Colby doesn't have to cut a lot. Therefore, his cardio continues to be top notch. Well, he's been out for 2 years. And one of the questions was, is he going to have ring rust? He's been out for a while. Well, Leon Edwards is the opposite of ring rust. He has been on a 14 fight unbeaten streak right now, and he's the champion for a reason. And the fight itself was very boring. They was expected to have a lot more action, and I'm going to actually talk about that more of why it was expected to have action. Just give me a second. Ultimately, Leon Edwards did win the fight, pretty much won all 5 rounds, and that was not really expected. Not that he would win, but we all expected Colby would have a better fight than that, but he just did not look the same. He did not look like his self. But I want to talk about more of what happened before the fight, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. A couple days before the fight, they had a press conference. And like I said at the beginning of this topic, Colby Covington says whatever. He has no filter. And he was talking about what he was going to do to Leon Edwards in the octagon. He said, I'm going to take you and put you through hell. Okay? Sounds like trash talk, right? Nothing wrong with that. He said, and while we're there, you could say hi to your dad. For those of you who don't know, Leon Edwards' dad was murdered when he was 13 years old. And Colby Covington decided, I'm going to bring that up while we're talking trash. Probably the lowest of the low you can get. And I used to really like Colby Covington till I heard him say that. I watched this live and I was like, you don't, there are certain things you just don't say. And that is one of them. You bring up someone's dad who was murdered and talk about, well, you could say hi to him in hell. That you just crossed the line. So, I mean, really quick, what do you guys feel on a comment like that?
Well, let me say that as someone who lost my dad, he is a real piece of trash for that. Okay, yes, there's trash talk, but then there's just being a straight up piece of trash, and I just have to know, like, mentally, like, what the hell is wrong with someone to even bring up something like that. That's my 2 cents for now, man. But just what an atrocious thing to say.
And I'm going to get to that after I hear Ed's comments as far as what mentally can make someone say that.
I certainly understand somebody trying to get the mental edge to take somebody out of their game, days ahead of the actual fight taking place. But this is something that not doesn't take Edwards out of his head. It actually makes him focus more because now you're giving him a purpose to fight for his dad, just to get back at Covington for those comments. And I saw the get up that Covington had, and it was all a big show to him, and which weigh-ins have always been a big show. The fight before the fight, because it's a war of words versus them actually getting in the ring and actually doing damage. But that is a line that's too far. Yes, Dana White is all about letting the fighters say what they want to say, how they want to say it. It's all about the show. it's a better show than boxing. And I don't think anybody can disagree with that. But that is a a road too far crossed, and it just simple and plain as that.
Yeah, and I earned a lot of, or I got a lot of respect now for Leon Edwards. He even said after the fight that he said, when he made those comments after the press conference, I went in the back and I cried. This is a grown man saying that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But he said I cried. I was so frustrated. Why would you even bring that up? I knew he brings up crap, but I never expected him to bring that up. And he said it took a lot out of me to control myself because I knew that that's what he wanted. He wanted me to come into this fight and just swing for the fences and waste my energy. But that it took a lot out of him to prevent that from happening. So I give him a lot of credit for that, because me as well, someone who's lost my dad, you instantly want to just rage. You're pissed about that. And so, props to him. A lot of credit goes out to him. But I want to talk more about Colby. For those who don't know, Colby Covington was going to get cut from the UFC several years back. He was boring. So he kind of just changed. He got this persona and has portrayed himself and is now known for that persona in all of his fights. So this is not new territory. He's been doing this for a couple years now. And I talked earlier to David before the show, and I said, we may have ourselves a new Antonio Brown. I know I'm comparing two different sports here, but in the post-fight interview, Colby Covington, they're asking about the fight, all that, and he said, I thought I won the fight. Look at me. I don't even have a scratch on me. As he's saying that, there's literally blood running down his head from a cut. And it's like, how can you sit there so delusional and truly believe that? And it had me thinking, do we have ourselves a new Antonio Brown? This guy does not think before he talks or does things. He's kind of delusional in the sense of, I don't even have a cut on my face. So, I mean, I know you guys don't may know the guy as much, but when you, just those comments I've said, I mean, David, do you think we got ourselves a new Antonio Brown possibly?
Certainly sounds like it. Let me ask this: like, has this guy gotten beat up? Has he gotten beat up so much that the cut that was on his head or whatever it was, like, just doesn't seem like a cut in comparison to what he's had before?
Well, not really. So when I say Colby is a great fighter, he really is. He is one of the top welterweights out there. But uh, it is a physical sport. He has been, pretty much knocked out. He has been hit plenty of times, just like Antonio Brown has in football. So, but yeah, the cut on his face, you could tell you could clearly see he's swollen. He's been beat up, and it's like, but to truly feel like that and believe that, it just seemed weird. It seemed odd to me.
Well, what I would certainly anticipate is there's so much adrenaline flowing through these guys that your body's in shock. You're not thinking that anything has actually happened to you, but you could have an arm cut off.
Yeah.
It's one of those things because when you're in a fight like that, you have to get yourself so mentally, just rushed
Mhm.
and physically rushed to where nothing actually pains you when you are getting hit like that. You
Mhm.
know, no matter how light or heavy that handed the punches were to the face. I mean, he took 20 punches to the head and, like you said, was a bit bleeding a bit, but did he even feel that? Because I know, in the fights that I've had in my life, I can't speak for you guys ever having any fights, but your face becomes numb when you get punched in the face. You don't feel anything else until it's over and you're taking a breath and you're like, oh, wait, I'm bleeding.
Mhm.
So, yes, it sounds like he's really playing the persona, and he could have a little bit of that Antonio Brown in him, trying to be a showman type thing uh, as part of it. But in the moment, just after going 5 rounds in a fight like that, especially with the last 2 rounds being as active as they were, I would imagine that he didn't feel too much going on. even though you could physically see that there was stuff going on.
Well, let me ask you. Let me ask you this, Matthew.
Mhm.
Um, Antonio Brown at one point was considered to be the best wide receiver in the NFL. Like it wasn't even questioned. And his career numbers are actually up there among the best. But people forget about it because the dude has turned into a complete freak show. Has Colby Covington at one point been considered the best of his respective sport?
He's been up there. Here's the thing, though. With this fight, it now brings him 0-3 in title fights. Thing is, though,
Mm.
is besides that, he wins all of his fights. It's just those title fights, and some will argue there was his second title fight against Kamaru Usman, and I'm one of those that felt that he won that fight. But the judges. When you leave it in their hands, anything could happen. But it was a very close fight. You just don't leave those things in the judges. But yeah, he's been up there as some of the best talent, I'll say, in the UFC. But he's probably one of the most hated people in the UFC, and so that does cloud some judgment. But the very best, no. Will I say was he also very best in his weight class at the time? I'll also say no, because Kamaru Usman is ranked as one of probably the best welterweights of all time, right there with GSP. And now Leon Edwards is up there as well. So, whereas Antonio Brown, I mean, for about 6 straight years, he was the best in the NFL. Where this guy, you can't really say that with Colby Covington.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So, but the card itself, though, did not lack. There was a lot of excitement, and I mean, just to start out the main card, there was a gruesome knockout. So I urge you to look up that knockout if you can. Look it up on YouTube. You'll see highlights. But Bryce Mitchell, I like the guy, but he got his lights knocked out. So I urge you to look that up. Josh Emmett, I've met him. He's a really nice guy, down to earth, and this was a well earned victory for him. So look up that knockout. It's probably one of the scariest ones you'll see, especially what happened after the knockout happened. So. But that's about all we have today, folks. So we appreciate you tuning in. Please hit that like and that subscribe button. Share our videos. Comment down below how you feel about Chip Kelly's comments, how you feel about Rashard Mendenhall's comments. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about that because, well, I mean, we're just 3 average white guys up here. So, but we're just sharing our opinions. Yeah, speak for yeah, yeah. So I'd love to hear from you guys as well of how you feel about that because it is a very interesting, intriguing comment. So, but yeah, guys, thank you for all your support. Continue to share these videos, and we will try to give you all the content you guys desire. But till next time, guys, we are rounding third, and we are headed for home.